Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rabbi Jenny Greenspan for Congregation Beth-El here for our weekly Torah Talk this morning on Parashat Naso, which is the second Torah portion in the book of Numbers. I'll give us a couple of moments to see who can join us this morning. And as usual, if you would like to follow along in a PDF of our Etz Chaim Chumash, go to bez613.org and hit the virtual Shabbat resources and scroll down to where it says Torah Talk, and there should be an Etz Chaim link which will give you a copy of the Torah portion as a PDF from the Etz Chaim Chumash. If you have a physical copy, you may go ahead and grab it. If you have any other Chumash, you are welcome to grab that too. I'm in Numbers chapter 6, verse 24. And actually today, if you don't have a Chumash, but you happen to have a Sidur at home, you can go to the repetition of any morning or Musaf Amidah, and you'll find the same verses that I'm planning to look at today. So any of those will be a good thing to grab, but if you are grabbing an Etz Chaim Chumash, I'll be on page 804, or Numbers chapter 6, verse 24 in just a moment. But for now, of course, we always have to say Shabbat Shalom and welcome. We have many of you joining us this morning already. Shabbat Shalom, good morning to James Roth, to Ellen Hamburger, to Phyllis Luger and Margot May. Shabbat Shalom to Carol Steinfeld and to Cheryl Tuff, to Jody Zucker, Jim Hammonds, the Scalairs, and Renee Fout. Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. So this morning, in our Torah portion, we have a few things in this Torah portion. We have the strange occurrence of the vow of the Nazarite, someone who decides to take an ascetic vow for about a month, 30 days unless they otherwise state, comes up in this week's Torah portion. There's also the very difficult, especially to the modern eye, sota ritual, a ritual done if a man suspects his wife of adultery. It's a really disturbing ritual to look at, but that comes up in this week's Torah portion as well. We see the Israelites traveling from place to place. We see a new census of the Levites. We see a lot going on in this morning's Torah portion. And then right here in the heart of the Torah portion, at the very end of the second triennial, the end of the second third of the Torah portion, we see some of the most famous verses in the entire Torah, which are called the priestly benediction, the priestly blessing. So say Shabbat Shalom and welcome to the Seagulls, and I'm going to take a moment to look at this blessing. This blessing that we traditionally find in many Friday night tables. It's a blessing often offered from parents to children on a Shabbat evening. After we have been doing it in our Zoom Friday nights as well. We light the candles, we say the Kiddush, we have our challah, and we bless our children with these words. These words also come up in the aloud portion of the Amidah in communities where they do a repetition of the morning Amidah or the Musaf Amidah in communities that do those. These blessings will be incorporated in some communities on holidays. They'll actually still have Kohanim give them with a slightly different response rather than a Ken Yehi Ratzon, yes, let it be so. If a Kohen, if a priest, someone descended from the priestly class, says the blessing, we even say Amen. It's a very, very pervasive set of verses, ones that we see all over the place in our liturgy, and they appear right here in the Torah, where we have God telling Moses to tell Aaron and Aaron's sons, meaning the Kohanim, that priestly class, that these are the blessings that God wants the Kohanim to give to the people Israel. There's something very interesting about how blessings in the Torah work if we follow the entire theme, starting with in Genesis, when God tells Abraham to be a blessing. Well, you may hear the song, "You shall be a blessing." And it seems at that moment that God sort of passes the ability to bless human beings off to human beings. Abraham is to be a blessing, we're to be a blessing, and here the Kohanim bless us. God tells the Kohanim how to bless us. but the Kohanim themselves are the ones doing it. And so these words will probably sound quite familiar, starting with verse 24. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God bless you and protect you. May God deal kindly and gracious with you. And may God bestow God's favor upon you and grant you peace. Last night in our service, Rabbi Dennis spoke a little bit about the first three words of this blessing, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, that you should be blessed and protected. And I want us today to look a little bit at the last three words of this blessing. I think that we really need to figure out how it is. V'yasem lecha shalom, may God grant you peace, can work in this world. We're coming off of a week with not a lot of peace. We're coming into Shabbat with a very, very, very thin, very tenuous, that's the word, ceasefire in Israel and in Gaza. And so we have to figure out what it is. Vayasem lecha shalom. How does God give us peace, grant us peace? And why is it that God sends people to bless us that God should grant peace? And I'm most intrigued by the verb in this phrase, vayasem. In the English here, it's rendered as grant, but it's also often used, lasim can mean to put, to place, to put something down, to put it in a particular spot. And so this is an interesting setting. What does it mean for God to place peace on us and to give us peace, to grant us peace? How do we get that? Ibn Ezra, a medieval commentator who kind of moved around a fair amount, suggested that giving us peace is pretty straightforward. It just means that we won't have evil or violence. And still, what does that mean to give it? How do we grant peace if it's simply not evil? Sforno, a similar timing but lived in Italy, said giving us peace is the serenity of peace, would be equivalent to the infinite, unbroken, and undisturbed existence, not tainted by violence or punishment, something that is a feature of life in the world to come. So Sforno seems to be suggesting that the granting us peace isn't in this lifetime. It seems to come at the end of the blessing because it's the next lifetime. It's in the world to come. But perhaps granting us peace in this lifetime isn't exactly what the blessing might be suggesting. I want us to look at it a little bit differently and suggest that perhaps God is asking Aaron and the priests to bless us by saying, grant us peace, because to some degree we have to take responsibility for peace for ourselves. So there's a teaching in Pirkei Avot, in the teachings of the fathers, or of the early sages. Hillel and Shammai received this oral tradition. And Hillel used to say, you should be a disciple of Aaron, a student of Aaron, the first priest, loving peace and pursuing peace. Ohev shalom verodef shalom. Loving mankind and drawing people close to Torah. So we have to love peace and to pursue peace. So Hillel here is suggesting peace is not only granted, but in order to be granted, we have to both love it and pursue it. We have to seek it out. We have to figure out where is it, how is it that we're supposed to do that. So Bartenura, a commentary on the Mishnah, who Rabbi Ovadia ben Avraham of Bartenura, composed his commentary on the Mishnah, including Pirkei Avot, in the 1400s, suggested this little parable of how it is that Aaron helps one to pursue peace. He said if he would see two people fighting, Aaron would go to each one of them without the knowledge of the other and say, oh, your friend, he so regrets whatever he did that is hurting you. He feels so bad and he wants to apologize to you. I just need you to talk to him. And then he would go to the other one and say, oh, what your friend did, he feels so bad. He just wants to apologize. You should just talk. And the two, believing that the other wanted to apologize, would come back to each other. essentially, the Bartanura seems to be suggesting that Aaron is, in fact, just making up stories, that each wants to apologize. But by creating the opportunity to apologize, peace is possible. There's another midrash that I think might be even more to the point. I unfortunately lost track of the citation, so I can't share where it is. But this one says that Aaron, when he wanted to be a peacemaker, he was simply someone who knew how to mediate. He was someone who could talk and create peace between a person and their friend, between man and woman, between families, and between tribes. Essentially, though, he was the mediator. That we have an instance where often when we have lack of peace, there are two parties in conflict. And the way to grant peace is for there to be an outside person who can come in and mediate and hear both sides and speak both sides and create the opportunity, as Bartanura's little parable is suggesting, for apology and create the opportunity to hear what the other is thinking and create the opportunity for peace. So when we look at our blessing in our Chumash that God asks the priests to give to us, V'yasem lecha shalom, it's not just that God will give us peace and that it will simply be outside, granted to us by God in God's own way, but that how God could grant us peace is by giving us peacemakers, allowing us to figure out how to be peacemakers between others, and by allowing us to ask for another to come in and help create for us the opportunity for tshuva, the opportunity for repentance to one another. So this week, where we have seen a lack of peace in the world, I hope that we can each in our own ways figure out ways that we, in our own lives, could be peacemakers with one another, ways that we could reach out, help our friends who may be in conflict in our own small scales, to hear one another, create the opportunity for them to speak and listen, create the opportunity for them to apologize to one another, to acknowledge that in most conflicts there's fault on both sides, and often all we need is a third party to come in and say, I think we could create peace here, and here's how I'm hearing it from the outside. So I hope this week, any conflicts in our own lives, we can find a peacemaker or become a peacemaker for another, and we can all truly feel the true blessings of these words and not have to, as Seforno seemed to suggest, we should not have to wait for the world to come for God to grant us peace, but rather we should become the mediators and the voice of God and grant peace to one another. Shabbat Shalom. May you have a Shabbat of peace, and may you find ways to create peace in your own lives and create peace in the larger world as a whole. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. And there, I'll say Shabbat Shalom. I see we had the Seagulls and Carol Vanaver, and Alex Binder, Amanda Messenger, Marty Lip, and Shabbat Shalom to everybody. And I'll hope to see you soon. Please join us at 10 o'clock on our live stream. Just be easy, 6:13, and watch live at 10 o'clock for the bar mitzvah of Ethan Martin as we explore this Torah portion a little bit more. Shabbat Shalom, and I will see you soon.